Introduction. Why school skips the most important subject. Have you ever noticed that 12 years of schooling, many of us add 4 more in college, seldom include a single lesson on handling the very thing we spend most of our adult lives chasing? Money? We sit through algebra, memorize historical treaties, and diagram sentences, yet no teacher systematically explains compound interest, cash flow diagrams, or tax law. Robert Kiyosaki wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad to close that gap. It is not a textbook full of equations. It is a story of 2 fathers who shaped the author's mind. One educated, salaried, and always anxious about bills. The other an 8th grade dropout who quietly built a real estate empire. Their contrasting advice created a mental tug-of-war that forced the young Robert to think for himself. Chapter 1. The Rich Don't Work for Money. Robert Kiyosaki was just 9 when he asked his dad a simple but powerful question. "Dad, how do I get rich?" What followed wasn't a lecture, but a life lesson. Robert had 2 dads. One was his biological father, a highly educated school teacher. The other was his best friend Mike's father, a savvy businessman. Both men were smart, but they thought about money very differently. His real dad said, "Get good grades, find a safe job, and work hard." But Mike's dad? He said, "The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them." Curious, Robert and Mike approached Mike's dad, his future rich dad, and asked him to teach them how to make money. Rich Dad agreed, but on one condition. They had to work for him. He paid them just 10 cents an hour. No explanation, no formal lessons, just long hours dusting cans at a store. Frustrated and ready to quit, Robert finally confronted Rich Dad, and that's when the real lesson began. Rich Dad explained, most people let life push them around. They're controlled by fear, the fear of not having money, and desire, the hope that more money will solve their problems. So they keep working harder without ever stopping to ask if there's another way. The real wealth, he said, begins not with a paycheck, but with how you think about money. That day, Robert learned the first and most important lesson. Don't work for money, let money work for you. The journey to wealth starts not in your bank account, but in your mindset. Chapter 2. Why Teach Financial Literacy? Years after his 10 cents an hour lesson, Robert began to notice something strange. Despite working hard, many educated, successful people, like his real dad, still struggled with money. And others, with barely any formal education, like his rich dad, seemed to thrive financially. Why? Because making money and keeping money are 2 completely different skills. Rich Dad would always say, it's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep and how hard that money works for you. Robert realized most people, even high earners, were stuck in a cycle. Earn more, spend more, take on debt, repeat. They confused liabilities with assets. They bought big homes thinking they were investing. They financed new cars, upgraded TVs, and paid for expensive vacations. But here's what Rich Dad taught him. An asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes it out. It doesn't matter what society calls it. If it doesn't generate income, it's not building wealth. It's eating it. So what counts as an asset? Rental properties, dividend-paying stocks, a business, intellectual property, things that make money even while you sleep. Rich Dad warned, if you can't read a financial statement, if you don't know where your money goes, if you keep buying liabilities thinking they're assets, you'll stay in the rat race forever. This chapter was Robert's wake-up call. The key to wealth isn't in earning more, but in understanding money. Financial literacy isn't optional. It's the foundation. Because if you don't learn how money works, someone who does will always end up with yours. All right, I want you to do something powerful right now. Grab a pen and paper or open your Notes app. Let's map out your money. Step 1. Write down all your monthly inflows. That's the money coming in. It could be your salary, freelance gigs, interest from savings, maybe income from a side hustle. List it all. Now, step 2, list your outflows, everything you spend money on each month. Rent or mortgage, food, transportation, gym membership, streaming services, credit card bills, subscriptions. Write it all down. Now, here comes the real test.
Circle every line on that page that would still pay you even if you stopped working tomorrow. Be honest, how many things did you circle? If it's only one or two, or maybe none at all, don't panic. That's your homework. Your mission moving forward is to start turning those uncircled lines into circled ones. Find income streams that don't depend on your daily hustle. Because here's the truth. The rich don't just earn money. They build machines that pay them over and over again. So, how many circles did you draw? And more importantly, how many will you add next month?
Chapter 3. Mind Your Own Business. By now, Robert was learning that wealth wasn't just about working hard. It was about working smart. Rich Dad had one phrase he repeated often: mind your own business. At first, Robert thought he meant starting a company or becoming an entrepreneur. But Rich Dad clarified, it wasn't about quitting your job. It was about knowing the difference between your profession and your true wealth-building engine. Most people confuse the two. A doctor might say her profession is her business, but if she stops working, the money stops too. That's not a business. That's a job with a fancy title. Rich Dad explained that the wealthy focus on building their asset column, things like real estate, stocks, or intellectual property that keep generating income over time. Even if they work a 9-to-5, they're still building wealth behind the scenes. Robert noticed how his poor dad, like most middle-class professionals, got promotions, bought a bigger house, and increased spending. Meanwhile, his rich dad used extra income to buy more assets, things that would pay him over and over again. This was the lesson. Your job pays the bills, but your assets build your freedom. So, while others climbed the corporate ladder, Robert started focusing on acquiring things that could eventually make working optional. Rich Dad's advice was simple. Stay employed if you want to, but always work harder on your own business than someone else's. Because the moment your assets generate more income than your job, you've escaped the rat race. Chapter 4. The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. One day, young Robert asked his rich dad a bold question. Why do the rich seem to pay less in taxes than the rest of us? Rich Dad smiled and replied, because they don't just earn money, they understand the rules of the game. This was a turning point in Robert's financial education. Poor Dad, his real father, believed that taxes were just part of being a good citizen, something to be paid without question. But Rich Dad saw taxes as something to manage strategically. The secret weapon of the rich? Corporations. Let's break it down with a simple example. Meet Jake. He works a regular 9-to-5 job and earns $10,000 per month. Because he's an employee, he gets taxed first. Let's say he pays 30% in taxes. That's $3,000 gone before he even sees his money. Now he has $7,000 left to pay rent, food, gas, subscriptions, everything. Now meet Emma. She runs a graphic design business and earns the same $10,000 per month, but through her corporation. Before she pays taxes, Emma deducts her business expenses. $1,000 for a home office, $500 for internet and phone, $1,200 for software and design tools, $800 for client meals and marketing. That's $3,500 in total. So instead of being taxed on $10,000, she's taxed on only $6,500. Her tax bill is around $1,950, while Jake pays $3,000. Same income, but Emma keeps over $1,000 more every month. That's not cheating, that's knowing how to play the money game right. Rich Dad taught Robert, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. And with the right tools, like corporations, the rich keep a lot more.
Chapter 5. The Rich Invent Money. As Robert continued learning from his rich dad, he began to notice a clear pattern. Some people waited, while others created. Most people sat around hoping for the right opportunity. But the rich, they invent opportunities. Rich Dad taught Robert that money isn't something you chase, it's something you create with the right mindset, education, and action. He explained that in today's world, the biggest risk is playing it safe. Most people are trained to follow the script. Go to school, get a job, work for a paycheck, save a little, hope for retirement. But the rich don't wait for doors to open, they build the doors themselves. Rich Dad called it financial intelligence, the ability to identify, assess, and act on opportunities. It's not about being born lucky or having the perfect timing. It's about developing the skill to recognize value where others see risk. While others say, I can't afford that, the rich ask, how can I afford that? That one shift from statement to question changes everything. It triggers creativity, problem solving, action. This chapter isn't about theory, it's about taking control of your mind. Your brain is your greatest asset or your biggest liability. The rich use education, experience, and risk management to create wealth out of thin air. Whether it's investing in real estate, starting a business, or creating a product, they see possibilities where others see obstacles. The poor wait for permission. The rich give it to themselves. Rich Dad's lesson was clear. You don't need to find money, you need to invent it. And once you learn to think like the rich, opportunities are no longer rare, they're everywhere. Take 15 minutes today. Set a timer. Look around your room, your phone, your skills, your community, and list 3 income ideas that don't require any money to start. It could be a digital service, a YouTube channel, a low-risk affiliate link, or even tutoring someone online. Don't judge the idea, just write it down. Then circle one and commit to taking one small action on it this week. Remember, the rich don't wait, they invent. Chapter 6. Work to learn, not to earn. By this point in his journey, Robert began seeing the world of work in a totally new light. His poor dad, the school teacher, believed in climbing the career ladder. Find a secure job, specialize, and work your way up, he'd say. But Rich Dad had a different philosophy. Don't work for money, work to learn. At first, Robert didn't get it. Why take a lower-paying job when you can earn more elsewhere? But then Rich Dad asked, what's more valuable, short-term money or lifelong skills that can make you rich forever? That hit hard. Most people chase promotions and titles. They become experts in one narrow field, hoping that their job will eventually pay them what they're worth. But the rich, they don't specialize early. They diversify their skills. Rich Dad encouraged Robert to learn marketing, sales, negotiation, leadership, investing, and people management, even if it meant taking jobs that paid less. Why? Because these skills compound over time and unlock opportunities that no salary ever could. He reminded Robert of many smart, hardworking people who remained broke, not because they lacked knowledge, but because they lacked financial adaptability. He said, the world is full of talented people who are one skill away from massive wealth, but they're too afraid to be beginners again. The rich know this. Money follows value, and value comes from being able to solve bigger problems. Robert realized that the best investment isn't in stocks or property, it's in your own ability to grow. Because when you're skilled in communication, persuasion, and strategy, you'll never need to chase money again. Money will chase you. Chapter 7. Overcoming Obstacles. By now he had learned the mechanics of money, how to build assets, read financial statements, even how the rich use corporations to protect wealth. But Rich Dad said something surprising. Knowing what to do isn't the hard part, it's doing it that separates the rich from everyone else. And he was right. In this chapter, Robert explores the 5 biggest obstacles that stop people from becoming wealthy. Not external ones, but internal ones. The first is fear. Not the fear of failure, but the fear of losing money. Most people are so scared of making a mistake that they never try. But here's the truth Rich Dad taught. Winners lose more often, they just lose smart and recover fast. Next is cynicism, those inner voices and sometimes outer critics that say, what if it's a scam? What if you lose everything? Cynics don't need facts, they need excuses, and excuses are expensive. Then comes laziness, which often hides behind being busy. People say they don't have time to learn about money, but never miss an episode of their favorite show. Rich Dad said, busy people are often the laziest thinkers. Fourth are bad habits, like not paying yourself first. Most people pay their bills first, then try to save what's left, which is usually nothing. The rich flip that script. And finally, the silent killer, arrogance. The moment you believe you already know everything, you stop learning. And in the world of money, the learning never ends. Robert realized that becoming rich isn't just a financial journey, it's an emotional battle. To win with money, you first have to win with your mindset, because the greatest investment you'll ever make is in overcoming your own limits. Chapter 8, Getting Started. After learning all the lessons, how the rich think, how they build assets, how they master fear, Robert faced the most important question of all. How do I actually start? And that's what this chapter is all about. Rich Dad reminded Robert that knowledge alone changes nothing. Action is what separates dreamers from doers. Most people wait for the perfect time, the right salary, the perfect idea, the guaranteed win. But Rich Dad said something powerful. There is no perfect time. The best time to start is always now. So how do you start? First, you need a strong reason. Not just, I want to be rich. That's not enough. What's your real why? Freedom, security, family, impact? Your why becomes your fuel when things get tough. Second, you need to choose to learn every day. Read books, attend seminars, watch interviews. Treat financial education like a lifestyle, not a weekend project. Third, choose your tribe wisely. Surround yourself with people who are thinking big, talking growth, and taking risks. Being around winners pulls you up. Next, take small, smart risks. Buy a book on real estate. Open a brokerage account. Start that side hustle. It doesn't have to be perfect, just real. And finally, just keep going. You will make mistakes. You will feel doubt. But every step you take forward builds momentum. Rich Dad's voice echoes in this chapter. Don't wait for opportunities. Create them. Don't wait to be ready. Start learning as you go. Because in the end, success belongs to those who don't just think differently, they act differently. Chapter 9. Still want more? Here are some to-dos. The book ends with 10 marching orders. 1. Set a burning goal that money alone cannot extinguish. 2. Daily choices shape destiny. Skip or invest the $6 latte. 3. Choose friends who challenge your comfort zone. 4. Master one strategy, then scale. 5. Pay yourself first, always. 6. Be generous. Giving primes the pump of receiving. 7. Manage risk through education, not avoidance. 8. Play to win rather than play not to lose. 9. Teach and you'll learn twice. Share these lessons with a teenager. 10. Never stop learning. Seminars, books, mentors, the cycle never ends. These steps transform knowledge into motion. Without action, even the best financial literacy calcifies into trivia. And that's it. 9 powerful lessons from Rich Dad, Poor Dad that can completely shift how you think about money. If you've made it this far, you're already doing something most people won't. You're investing in your financial mindset. But watching isn't enough. Knowledge only becomes power when you act on it. So here's the challenge. Go back to the chapter that hit you the hardest. Pick one small action you can take today, because small steps lead to big change. You don't need more motivation. You need a reason and a decision. If this video helped you see money differently, drop a comment saying, "Money works for me now." Let's see who's ready to take control. And if you found value, consider liking the video and sharing it with someone who needs to hear this. More content like this is on the way, so stay tuned, keep learning, and keep building. Think smart, start small, act bold.